you at home right now? Do you know who else is home? Are you sure there isn't anyone else? When you were growing up, what was the most important lesson the adults in your life tried to teach you? Was it to look both ways before crossing the street? Was it to wear a helmet whenever you're biking or skateboarding around the neighborhood? Maybe it had to do with language or politeness, what words and phrases we do and do not say to the people around us. Let's face it, being a kid is about 50% lesson learning, and there's a huge list that your guardians have to get through to make sure you grow up safe and informed. But I think there's one rule that most people learn fairly early, one that, like plenty of other childhood messages, maintains its relevance far into the future, all the way into your adulthood. You should always look both ways before crossing the street. You should always wear a helmet when biking or skateboarding. And you should always be careful when talking to strangers. This lesson is, of course, more important as a kid when your judgment is limited and you have less power to defend yourself in a dangerous situation. Stranger danger isn't about learning how to escape a kidnapper or fight off a murderer. It's a tactic of avoiding the situation in the first place. It's cutting your losses and acknowledging that it's impossible to have a problem with someone if you don't interact with them. But the scary part, the part that keeps parents and guardians up at night, is the idea that sometimes strangers will go out of their way to interact with you, with children. We've all heard the story of the man in the van offering candy, of the stranger at school who tells you your mom is in the hospital and you need to come with him now, of the lone figure near the playground who isn't technically doing anything wrong, but still seems off, so close to so many unaware children. You can never guess what a person is capable of, what's going on in their mind, and sometimes following all the rules still isn't enough. Sometimes being an adult isn't enough. It's hard to describe how terrifying it is to actually hide from someone. It's not like hide and seek, watching someone's feet walk past from beneath the bed, stifling a giggle as one of your friends calls out in a goofy voice for you. No, it's different when it's someone you don't know, whose motivations you can't be sure of, who probably wants to hurt you. I've talked about a lot of styles of horror on this channel. I've talked about ghosts and giant monsters, about outer space and the afterlife and the backrooms, about aliens and cannibals and androids. But most of the time, when I talk about these horrors and what makes them so scary and why they're fascinating to me, I'm engaging with them in a fictional sense. The stakes, while dramatic and potentially effective, are not real. They don't actually matter to us. Our frame of reference for the horror is limited and rooted in entertainment, not actual danger. Tonight, that changes, because this video will be the first in a series covering a game that seems to uniquely understand real-life human horror. A game that puts you into the shoes of real people who've encountered real-life terrifying circumstances. A game that asks you, if something happened, if someone you didn't know was after you, was stalking you, hiding somewhere near you, would you survive? It might be harder than you think. Fears to Fathom is a series of 5 games by the developer Rayll. Each game is self-described as an episodic psychological horror game where each episode unveils a short story narrated by the ones who survived. What this actually means, at least as we've been told by the developer, is that the plots of these games have been pulled from the actual experiences of survivors. While the first episode of the series is allegedly from a Reddit post, later entries were submitted by fans of the games who had been through terrifying encounters themselves. Now, I should note that there's some debate to how real these stories are. You'll find different posts and videos where people swear they found the true story behind one of the episodes, confident that everything depicted in the game actually happened, whereas in other communities, you'll find people arguing that the games are fictional with a real world, based on true events style hook. It seems totally possible that it's a bit of column A and a bit of column B. Maybe the developer does accept real stories from real people who obviously could embellish their tales on their own, and then more horrifying content is added for the sake of making a compelling game. I can't claim to know which of these parties is correct, but what I can say is this. For this style of horror, which is pretty grounded and realistic, I think the experience is more effective if you suspend whatever disbelief you have and ride with the idea that you're playing out a true story. So that's what I'm going to do for this series. Feel free to comment your thoughts on this point, but just know that going forward, we're assuming everything actually happened, or at least could happen. As I mentioned earlier, this collection of stories has 5 episodes. Home Alone, Norwood Hitchhike, Carson House, Ironbark Lookout, and finally, Woodbury Getaway. I'm going to be covering each of these games individually in smaller videos between my bigger video essays, and when the series is finally complete, I'll release all the videos as one big video. But for now, we're just going to focus on the first entry into Fears to Fathom, Home Alone. Home Alone is by far the shortest entry into the series, taking less than 20 minutes to play through completely, and so tonight's video will likely be shorter than the rest of the series going forward, but hey, it'll serve as a good introduction and help me figure out whether or not you boneheads are interested in the rest of this series. If you are, please let me know. I'll get the next episode out quicker that way. So, without any further ado, let's visit the home of a boy left alone for the weekend and see what horror awaits him. It's July 12th. Summer. Our protagonist, a boy named Miles, has been left alone at home for a weekend while his parents are on a work trip, hence the name of the episode. His sleep schedule is messed up. He's asleep and awake at seemingly random times. Our story begins with Miles in bed, woken by the sound of his alarm at 8 p.m. He has homework to do, which is strange considering we just established it was summer, but hey, maybe he's got summer school. Or maybe his parents were the type of parents to assign homework to keep their kids' minds sharp while out of school, like mine did. Whatever the case, he's too hungry to start, so he heads downstairs to get some food. By reading texts with his mom and his friend Mason, we learn a couple things. The first is that Miles is 14, so he's either in 8th or 9th grade. His mom made lasagna, and he's trying to have Mason over to play Mario Kart, which sounds like a pretty kick-ass evening to me. Mason also references the chemistry homework over text, so either they're both in summer school together, both have parents who love ruining their kids' summer vacation, or Mason just knows about Miles' struggle from a distance. There's some element of choice in these games, not huge ones, just where you go and what specifically you pay attention to. So depending on who's playing, Miles might go investigate his parents' empty bedroom first, which has a pretty great window view down into the driveway. When Miles looks out the window, he sees the silhouette of someone standing outside the house, potentially next door. It's hard to tell, but it almost looks like the figure is looking into the house, and when they see Miles looking back, they walk off casually as though nothing was wrong. If you go right outside after witnessing this, the figure is nowhere to be seen. I love this moment, because there's a distance between your reaction to seeing this figure and Miles' assumed reaction. We know that we're playing a horror game, and there's a little sound cue when you see the guy, so this moment definitely helps to put us on edge, but to Miles, it's just a regular night, and he doesn't even comment in his narration about the figure. That's the scary thing about a lot of these situations. In retrospect, as an audience looking back at something we know to be bad, we can see the elements of the horror starting to stack up, but in the moment, it all seems so ordinary. It's like yelling at characters for making stupid decisions in a slasher. Sure, the choice might not make sense to us, but to the character on screen, they don't know they're in a slasher. Miles doesn't know what's about to come, so he doesn't know to be on edge. Would you? Anyway, Miles heats up the lasagna and sits in front of the TV where he eats the entire thing. It's a pretty big lasagna. I have to note here, you eat something in most entries into Fears to Fathom, and every single time, it's the most disgusting, shiver-inducing audio pumped right into your ears. I always play horror games wearing headphones to help with immersion, and let me say, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that these chewing moments are some of the most uncomfortable audio experiences I have ever had. I don't know where this audio is ripped from, but it's disgusting. Anyway, Miles goes back upstairs to finally start working on his summer chemistry homework, and sometime later, it's done. He gets a text from his mom right before he goes to bed, telling you kids not to stay up too late, implying she believes Mason to be spending the night, which he was unfortunately unable to do. And she also mentions a neighbor, a Mrs. Paula, who she's hoping not to hear from, assuming Miles and Mason will be getting rowdy tonight. But this not being the case, Miles simply goes to sleep. At 1:16 a.m., Miles gets up to get some water. The street is a lot darker now, obviously. He's able to find a water bottle, no problem, and is almost back in bed when he gets a message from his mom. It's a picture of the house's front door, and someone's standing there. Miles just walked past that door to get his water. Whoever was standing there was so close to him, and he didn't even know. Did the person see him through the windows? What are they doing there? Miles' mom says that Paula sent the photo. She'd seen someone snooping around the house, creeping through the windows. She tells Miles that the cops are on their way and to hide in his room. In just that moment, we hear the sound of glass breaking. He's inside the house. Now, pretty much every Fears to Fathom game has this moment. The moment where the atmosphere transitions from creepy and unsettling to urgent and dangerous. These are the moments where your little decisions really matter, where you have to make quick, split-second choices to avoid the danger actively seeking you out. We're playing a game here, which means that if we make the wrong choice, we might get spooked, but we can always try again. But remember, for Miles, the person who submitted the story and allegedly lived through it, this isn't a game. It's real life, and there's an invader in his house who he doesn't know the exact location of. What would you do? Alone in your room knowing someone was there for you. The cops are supposed to be on their way, but you have no way of knowing how long it'll take for them to get there. You don't have a weapon. Do you run in the direction of the noise? Well, maybe if you wanted to die. Maybe, because it looks like the invader might be upstairs with you, you should cut your losses and try to make a break for it out the door. But what if they're faster than you, and they catch you before you can make it? There's a window. You could try that, but who knows, that could make it easier for the invader to see you depending on where they are, and if you fall, you could get hurt, maybe so hurt that if the invader made their way outside, you wouldn't be able to run from them. So, Miles makes the only choice left. He hides under his bed. Now, I would classify this kind of move as a gamble. In a horror movie, watching someone hide under a bed is a bit of a head-slap decision. If you get cornered there, it's impossibly difficult to escape, and if your attacker is strong, or especially if they have a weapon, you're basically just a sitting duck. But again, as I keep mentioning, this isn't a horror movie to Miles. It's real life, and you can't expect everyone, much less a 14-year-old, to always make the most tactical decision. And here's the thing, there's not a rule book for surviving something like this, and in this situation, Miles makes the right call. The police show up, and Paula appears at the front door. We almost don't trust the sound of the bell ringing, but Miles' mom tells us who it is. If we go into the parents' room again, we find a broken window, the same one that Silhouette was staring up at earlier. We don't know if this is how he got into the house, but it's clearly the route he left through. He's gone. He didn't find us. We're safe. For now. And that's how the game ends. Like I said, it's the first and shortest entry into the series, plus it's free, so it's not exactly a massive narrative with arcs and twists and all that, but that's why it works. We're left shaken, our tension and stress technically falling but weirdly unresolved. Whether or not you made the wrong choice during your playthrough and encountered a scare, when you actually reach the end and see the actual way your character survives, you don't know how to feel about things. This is the appeal of these games. They don't wrap up cleanly. They don't follow a perfect narrative structure because neither does life. Life is messy, and chaotic and filled with strange, bumbling people who want various things, and sometimes you just have to get lucky. Miles got lucky. Most of the protagonists of these games get lucky, because if they didn't, who would be there to tell the story? So, this will conclude the first episode of our exploration into this unique game series. While there's a lot less to talk about in this first episode than those to follow, there are a couple established features and moments that we'll be seeing repeated in future games, like loud eating, texts between multiple people acting as part of the story, hiding from people with unknown intentions, but most of all, a new little shred of distrust for the people around you added to your psyche every single time you wrap up an entry. Thanks for joining me in this first episode. I hope you enjoyed because I think these games are a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to cover more episodes. Because, in my opinion, the games only get better. It's clear to me that Rayll's style and skill developed a lot over the course of creating these games, and each subsequent entry shows this off more and more. If you like this series, please let me know with a comment or a like, or both if you're feeling generous, and I'll get to the next episode ASAP. Have a good night, boneheads. And hey, before you go to sleep tonight, why don't you take one little check around on all the hiding places in your house? You never know when you're going to need one. Or if someone's already there.